What the heck just happened? Well, this was the night that everything changed. It all started like any other day. I picked up a ride request on the app. It's kids in the back seat, no problem. I've done this tons of times before. This was nothing out of the ordinary. But what ended up happening was something that I will never forget for the rest of my life. As the two kids got into the car, they were wearing these blue surgical masks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I see a kid wearing a mask, it kind of creeps me out a little bit. No, hi, how are you? Nothing. They just stared straight ahead. That's fine. I thought maybe they were shy or something. You see, once they were strapped in, they turned towards me, and they both gave me the same exact look. I was getting more and more nervous because the road just kept going on and on and on. And there was nothing but trees surrounding us. There was nobody else on the road, because I could hear what sounded like chains dragging metal moans. I was seriously freaking out. So I backed away from the window slowly. I didn't want to touch that backpack. I didn't want to touch anything. I was scared. It was just my car and these two kids, and it was dead silent. His side window also had the same exact handprints, except his were also dripping. But then he did something that made me lose it. He squeezed it very hard, and then he pulled his sleeve down, so that I could see the handprint on his arm. It was the same exact handprint that was on the window. This is where everything changed. Then they lifted their masks just enough so they could point at me with one finger each and say, "Drive us to this place." I hit the gas so hard that I blew a tire. I could only describe what they looked like, not who they were. And without any identification, there was no way of knowing who they were or where they were now. So I logged onto the app and I looked at the route we had taken. And guess what I found? There were no pings anywhere along the route after I dropped them off. They definitely were into the place where they had asked me to take them to begin with. They'd never even got out of my car. I answered it. And it was the police asking me if I knew anything about two missing kids who had been reported missing. What happened to those kids? Where are they now? Did they get away? Or did somebody hurt them? And to this day, I still don't know what happened to those kids, and I was too afraid to do anything about it. I let those kids walk away. But what has bugged me the most is that I have no idea where they went. If you want to hear another scary story, click the video on screen now. Thanks for watching. See you next time. I have no idea what happened to them. And I honestly believe that wherever they went, they didn't go willingly. I told them everything. Told them about the handprints. Told them everything I could remember. I was driving on a rim for miles and miles until finally I found another road. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. All I could think about was getting as far away from those kids as possible. I did, and I turned off the engine. Both the kids got out of the car. I rolled down my window and I asked them, "Is there anything else I can help you guys with?" They actually came to my car to investigate, and guess what they found? They found the same exact handprints on my car that I had described to them. But even though I told them exactly where I dropped the kids off, when they went to check the address, nobody was there. They asked me if I knew what the kids' names were. I obviously didn't, but I did know their ages. Of course, I was skeptical, but I figured that if I took her phone, that meant that I would have something to barter with if things got bad. So I said sure, and I grabbed the phone. But once I did, she immediately ran to the back of the car and grabbed that backpack. She tossed it in the back seat, and she jumped right next to it. Then she pulled her mask down just far enough so that she could whisper something to me. But instead of saying anything, the boy just ran to the back of my car and he grabbed a backpack. So I asked her to repeat herself, and this was the messed up part. When she leaned over the seat to talk to me, I saw a huge handprint on the window behind her. It was covered in what looked like dried blood. He brought it to me and he knocked on my window. And then she had squeezed with all her might. And it wasn't just her, it was another one. Next to hers was another handprint. Only this one looked like it was fresh. It was still wet and dripping down the window. So I looked at the app, and I saw the address they wanted me to go to. I noticed that it was the same exact address that they had given me before, the one they had given me when they initially got into the car. And so I asked them where they wanted to go. They both pointed at the same time to the front seat passenger side. So I was like, oh, okay. They probably want me to put them in their car seats. So I stopped the car, and I went around and I helped them get into their car seats. I don't know why, but it just does. I tried to shake it off because I had to work. I needed money, and I couldn't afford to turn down a trip. So I accepted the ride request. The two kids sat in the back seat without saying a word. This is where things took a turn for the worst. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this was starting to creep me out. I was like, do I go to this address or do I try to cancel the ride? We drove past the place they had asked me to take them to, and they told me to keep going. Now, mind you, I'm starting to get a little bit freaked out, so I asked them, are you sure this is where you want to go? And the only response that I got from them was silence. So I decided I should probably just drive them to the address, and then afterwards, I can cancel the ride on the app and everything will be good. But this is where the thing started to get really, really weird. We continued driving, and we ended up on this really long dirt road. After what felt like an eternity, they finally told me to pull over. I looked at the backpack and I was like, wait a minute, what the hell is in that backpack? Then the girl knocked on the window again. She handed me her phone and she said, can I call you? Give us your phone and don't call the cops. Wait, what? So I think I kind of misheard her. So I'll never forget this look. The way it looked, it was like she had pressed her hand up against the window. She must have seen me looking at the handprints because she quickly moved away from the window. But then the boy leaned over from the other side. He reached over and he grabbed his sister's shoulder. The last thing I remember was screaming and then hitting the gas. The next thing I knew, my phone was ringing. And the crazy thing is that the cops believed me. They called me back later, and they told me that their investigation was going to go nowhere because I could unidentify the kids. I was devastated. I felt horrible. I mean, I had been face to face with death. When I told my friends about what had happened, they told me to check the app to see if there was any recent pings. Maybe the kids had been tracked somehow. There was no record that the kids had ever existed, and that has been eating away at me. I'm sorry, but I can't take another ride request. Not tonight. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like. Welcome back, everyone. For the first time in almost a decade, the Unsolved Cases are taking a break to bring you an episode of He-Man. Where are they now? On September 2nd, 2021, 37-year-old Heidi Plank drove for Uber in the Toluca Lake area of Los Angeles, California. It was around 9:40 p.m. when she got a pickup request from a male passenger who wanted a ride about 5 miles south down Coldwater Canyon. That sounded pretty straightforward. So Heidi accepted the fare. Today, we're going to revisit the case of Heidi Plank and get some answers. If you don't recall this case, let's go over the basics. The strange thing about this case is that there really isn't much to go on. She thinks it starts with the letter A and ends in B, but that's about it. If that was the case, though, it doesn't explain why he didn't try to escape afterward. Another theory is that the passenger had asked Heidi to drive him somewhere remote, where he could stash his body, and that he planned to kidnap her and hold her for ransom. Once they arrived at the secluded location, but again, that doesn't explain why he fled after causing the accident. However, after scouring the area, they were unable to find any human remains or even any trace of blood. Understandably, she was terrified to drive her car or ride in a car alone. This tragic event forced her to quit her job and she became too anxious to work. She eventually started seeing a therapist, and driving an Uber wasn't something she felt comfortable doing anymore. The passenger was either exceptionally unlucky or exceptionally lucky. In the wrong situation, finding someone's body but missing the head and limbs is relatively common. Then on April 6, 2022, more than 6 months after the incident, Heidi received a phone call from the homicide unit. Before the police had a chance to gather evidence from the vehicle, Alibi may have used a fake ID, in which case there won't be any fingerprints or DNA connected to him. Now, before we wrap things up, let's look at the 3 possible scenarios in this case. And because he was never formally identified at the scene, there won't be a death certificate or autopsy report. The detective on the other end of the line informed her that they finally had a lead on the man's identity. This is unlikely, since there is absolutely zero evidence of a struggle inside the car. If someone else was involved, Heidi would have seen signs of forced entry or damage to the car's interior, and asked if she would like to be involved in a lineup. In a case like this, it is highly unlikely that authorities will be able to locate the passenger's remains. Where are they now? Update on the case of Heidi Plank. Hopefully this case gets resolved soon. Please continue to send your feedback and suggestions to the email provided below. I'll see you next time. And if they found them without a positive identification method, they couldn't officially match the remains to Ali. But in this scenario, there was no body at all. If that's true, he could be anywhere in the world right now. But this scenario seems less likely since he left behind his cell phone and his wallet. Also, he didn't appear to have any visible injuries after opening the door, which means he probably wouldn't have been able to walk very far. Nobody has any idea what may have motivated this horrible crime. He completely vanished after that fateful night. Police can't find any record of him ever living in the United States, but that doesn't mean he is from another country. Ali Bey could have entered the country on a tourist visa and returned to his home country afterward. Unfortunately, the crash destroyed most of the available evidence. We don't know if the guy paid for the Uber ride with cash or a card. We don't know if anyone saw him enter the vehicle. Nonetheless, the police shared a photo with her. And when she saw his face, Heidi's heart sank. It was him. It was definitely him. The police confirmed the man's name was Alabe, but they weren't sure of his last name. We don't know anything about his background, his occupation, where he lived, where he grew up, or any details about his personal life. And it was then that the passenger did something that would shock her to the core. He opened the passenger side door while they were still driving 50 miles per hour. Police have no idea who he is or why he acted the way he did. This was not just your run-of-the-mill murder. Is there any new information in this case? What happened to the silent Uber passenger? Has he been caught? Let's dive into it. She remembers him saying something about being late for a meeting, but she's unsure if those were his exact words. At first, investigators believed he might be a witness in a different case that LAPD were working on, but that theory proved to be incorrect. There was zero evidence left behind, which means the killer is likely extremely intelligent and experienced in evading the police. He could be dead, but it's equally possible that he is alive and hiding. With that being said, law enforcement officials believe the passenger perished in the crash, but they haven't been able to recover his remains. When the door opened, it created a wind gust that caused the vehicle to spin out of control. They rolled over several times before coming to a stop. It was at that point that she noticed her passenger was acting very strangely. He sat in the front seat and buckled up but never said a word. Even when Heidi made polite conversation, the man didn't respond. He also seemed to be unfazed by the fact that they were driving down a pitch-black road with only a single working headlight. After about 40 minutes, they had driven past their destination. Heidi slowed down to make a U-turn and head back. Incredibly, Heidi managed to escape the vehicle and call 911. Paramedics arrived shortly after and transported her to the hospital where she was treated and released. As for her mysterious passenger, he was nowhere to be found. His name was never learned, his face was never identified, and no trace of him has ever been uncovered. This is the only known image of the man, a security camera picture taken moments before he entered Heidi's car. The case received a fair amount of media attention at the time. But as months went by, it appeared that the mystery would never be solved. As far as we know, Heidi might have been the only person who knew the man's name, but she wasn't sure how to spell it. Some people think the passenger was trying to steal Heidi's car and figured opening the door while they were moving would cause the vehicle to crash. There have been many wild guesses, but nothing concrete, which brings us to today. One of the biggest hurdles for investigators was the fact that Heidi could unrecall exactly what the man had told her. Although the media called this an unsolved murder, it's important to remember that technically the passenger has never been identified. Since the passenger door was ripped clean off its hinges, they believe his body was ejected during the rollover. While police worked on the case, Heidi tried to move on with her life. As time went on, she began to lose hope that the killer would ever be brought to justice. She agreed, but when the day arrived, she was informed that the suspect was refusing to participate. To this day, nobody knows where Ali lives, where he's from, who his family is, where he works, anything about him at all. As I mentioned earlier, the main problem with this case is that there is virtually no evidence left behind. In fact, the car itself was crushed by an insurance company. That's the big problem here. There is a mountain of evidence missing from this case. Scenario no. One is that Alabe is dead. If that's the case, he died during the rollover, but his body was never located. Scenario no. Two is that Alibi is alive and hiding. That brings us to scenario no. 3. Perhaps the least likely but still a possibility is that Ali is dead and his body was moved. So which scenario do you think is true? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That concludes our He-Man. Welcome to my channel. This is the scariest place in the world. Part 27. All the stories in this series are supposedly true. Every day, People around the world experience scary things that defy explanation. Some people even say they encounter otherworldly beings or visit places that seem straight out of a nightmare. We've heard about terrifying tunnels before, but today we're going to talk about something different. We'll be reading scary stories from drivers who ran into trouble with strangers in parked cars, from ghostly hitchhikers to unsettling notes left on windshields. As I approached, I noticed a lone woman waiting by the side of the road. Throughout our conversation, I hadn't changed my clothes or touched my face. And yet when the police entered my car, they found traces of blood on my clothes and face. It was cold and rainy, so I rolled down my window and asked if she needed a lift. She nodded silently, got into my car, and told me to drive to a certain address. I agreed without hesitation. They also discovered a gun under my seat. I denied everything, but they didn't believe me. They arrested me and took me to jail. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me. I don't know if they were ghosts, demons, or something else. But to this day, I avoid tunnels and always check the back seat of my car before driving. As she dialed the number, I noticed her hand was covered in bandages. Concerned, I asked if she needed medical attention. But she quickly changed the subject and ended the call without speaking to anyone. It was too dangerous for me to pass by without offering her a lift. Despite the distance, I decided to pick her up. Puzzled, I asked why, but Sarah just told me to drive on. After a while, we reached a fork in the road. Sarah thanked me for the lift and started getting out of my car. I was driving home from a trip when I saw a young woman standing by the roadside. She was attractive, and I didn't hesitate to offer her a lift. As I drove, she told me her name was Sarah, and she was hitchhiking to her family home. If you want to hear more scary stories, stay tuned for more content. Thanks for watching. Apparently, I had kidnapped several women in the same way. They accused me of assault, kidnapping, and trying to murder the girl. I was innocent, but no one believed me. Suddenly, she instructed me to pull over. Scared, I asked what was wrong. She didn't have a shadow. At first, I thought it was just an optical illusion caused by the dim light. But when I stepped out of the car, I realized Sarah's shadow was nowhere to be seen. She got out and walked a few steps before disappearing. From the other side of the fork in the road, I saw a faint glow and heard a bell ringing. Curious, I walked over and saw a house with lights coming from its windows. But it wasn't any ordinary house. It was a church. Sarah had vanished inside it. Looking back, I saw the man and the woman standing side by side, waving their arms and shouting at me to stop. Confused and frightened, I ignored them and continued driving. At that moment, my GPS led me directly into a tunnel. But before she could answer, a man appeared from behind a bush and opened my car door. I slammed the car into gear and sped away. I panicked and pressed the gas pedal, racing through the darkness. As I drove, I heard footsteps running alongside my car. Then suddenly the tunnel lights flickered on, revealing the two people from before walking out of the shadows. The woman looked at me with a blank expression on her face, while the man had a crazed look in his eyes. I sat alone in a cell thinking about what had happened. I still have nightmares about the incident. To this day, I don't know what happened to the girl. Was she possessed by a demon? Or was I really facing a supernatural force? I don't have an answer for that. These terrifying encounters will show how even an ordinary ride can turn into a terrifying experience. So buckle up, because these stories will keep you looking over your shoulder for the next time you see a car in the dark. Story 1. Mirror Messages. It was late at night and I was driving back to my hotel after a long journey. As she got into my car, I asked where she wanted to go. The girl told me the name of a nearby town. However, it was almost 40 miles away. Before I could respond, she started looking around nervously and then at the rearview mirror. I followed her gaze and noticed strange messages written in the fogged glass. Day read, "Don't trust the next stop." Immediately after, she screamed, dropped to the floor, and hid. I tried to calm her down and asked what was wrong. She kept repeating the same thing over and over again. I was confused and scared by her reaction. After a while, she stopped screaming and told me to drive to the nearest police station. I did as she said and stayed with her until help arrived. When we got there, she explained what had happened to the officers. According to her story, she was on her way home when she saw my car coming towards her. She accepted my offer of a lift without hesitation. However, she soon realized something was wrong. When she turned to me, she saw a horrifying sight. I had turned into a creepy old man with bloodshot eyes. She knew something wasn't right and tried to open the door, but it was locked. That's when she saw the messages in the mirror, warning her not to trust the next stop. In a panic, she started banging on the glass, but I just smiled at her. Fortunately, the police didn't believe her story and thought she was making it up. After talking to them for a bit, I took her home. The following day, I learned the truth. Through witnesses, they had determined that the girl was telling the truth. Story 2. The Tunnel. While driving through a small town, I spotted a young woman standing by the side of the road. However, as I drove, I noticed that the streets were unfamiliar. As I drove faster, I heard a loud bang and felt something hit my car. Just as I entered the tunnel, the woman shouted, "Stop! Please stop!" Shaking with fear, I managed to escape the tunnel. But as I looked back, I saw the two people disappear into the darkness. Story 3. Ghostly Hitchhiker. A few minutes later, she asked if she could use my phone to call her parents and let them know she had arrived. When I asked her where she wanted me to drop her off, she replied, "At the fork in the road, please." But before she could leave, I noticed something strange. To this day, I wonder if I picked up a ghost or a demon. Either way, I never pick up hitchhikers anymore. Which story was the most frightening to you? Let us know in the comments below. In today's video, we will be looking at this strange and freaky viral TikTok video. So let's get into the video without any further ado. This is the story of a woman who ordered a ride from her house to her friend S's house. The whole situation became weird when she saw a notification that said that the driver gave her a 5-star rating, but with a kiss emoji instead of stars. I am used to the apps. I know what I am doing. I checked it, and there was no one in my back seat. He told me that this was a weird situation, and he didn't know how he was going to proceed. I captioned it, "What do we do?" This guy literally blew my dashcam a kiss. How weird is this? Posted it and went to work. About 3 hours later, I got a notification that my video had gone viral.
Ow.
My phone was blowing up with notifications. I was getting tagged in comments and direct messages left and right. I was shocked and surprised. It was crazy. He asked me if I wanted to pursue charges, and I told him yes. But some people actually had useful things to say, and others knew who the guy was, so I decided to go to the police station and ask for an update. I called him out, and I demanded that he explain himself. I wanted to hear his side of the story, and I wanted to know why he had done what he did. I explained everything that had happened, and I showed him the evidence I had gathered. I was hoping that he would take action, but he didn't. I called him out, and I demanded that he explain himself. I was nervous, but I knew that I had to do it. I wanted answers, and I needed closure. He told me that there was nothing more he could do, and that I should let it go. I started digging through his social media accounts, and I found something shocking. I called him out, and I demanded that he explain himself. I was nervous, but I knew that I had to do it. I wanted answers, and I needed closure. He had posted a video of himself outside of my house. I wanted to hear his side of the story, and I wanted to know why he had done what he did. But he never responded. He blocked me on social media, and he disappeared. I was devastated and frustrated. I couldn't believe that he had gotten away with what he did. It was the exact same day and time that he had taken the ride from me. I was scared and confused. Why was he outside my house? I was furious. Couldn't believe that the police were ignoring such a serious issue. But he never responded. He blocked me on social media, and he disappeared. I was devastated and frustrated. Couldn't believe that he had gotten away with what he did. It's even harder to believe that the police wouldn't take action against him. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Do you have any similar experiences you'd like to share? Feel free to comment down below. We appreciate your support and can't wait to bring you more videos in the future. Thanks for watching. Take care. But this story is a reminder that we can't always rely on the authorities to protect us. Sometimes we need to take matters into our own hands and stand up for ourselves. I was nervous, but I knew that I had to do it. I wanted answers and I needed closure. I talked to the same detective, and he told me that he had a lead on who the guy might be and he was going to look into it further. I explained everything that had happened, and I showed him the evidence I had gathered. I was hoping that he would take action, but he didn't. He told me that there was nothing more he could do, and that I should let it go. I was furious. I couldn't believe that the police were ignoring such a serious issue. I started digging through his social media accounts, and I found something shocking. He had posted a video of himself outside of my house. It was the exact same day and time that he had taken the ride from me. I was scared and confused. Why was he outside my house? I gave the man's full name and all of the information I had to the detective. I decided to take matters into my own hands and find out what happened to him. I started digging through his social media accounts and I found something shocking. He had posted a video of himself outside of my house. It was the exact same day and time that he had taken the ride from me. I wanted to hear his side of the story, and I wanted to know why he had done what he did, but he never responded. He blocked me on social media, and he disappeared. I was devastated and frustrated. I couldn't believe that he had gotten away with what he did. I was scared and confused. Why was he outside my house? He thanked me for coming forward and promised to investigate, but that was the last I heard from him. I thanked him, and I went home. I thought that was the end of it. According to some people, he was known to do this to female drivers, and it wasn't the first time. They were all the same person. He was telling me that he knew who did this, and that he should be held accountable for his actions. We started communicating back and forth, and he sent me a screenshot from his social media account. He had more information than I did, and he seemed to know more than the police. According to the information he had, the guy had done this to several women, and he was even bragging about it. It was gross. There were even rumors that he had done this to someone else recently, said that technically the man had not committed a crime, but it was very suspicious. And if he were my husband or daughter, he would want to know what happened. Suggested that I make another post about it on social media and see if anyone knew who he was, and then he hung up on me. That was weird. In fact, the person who had been in the back seat had leaned all the way forward to blow my dashcam a kiss. It was right in front of my face. I immediately ended the trip and called the police non-emergency line to report the incident. They took my information and told me to send the footage to them. I did, and I waited. One day I was giving a short suburban fare. I dropped someone off at their destination, and I received a notification that said, "Thank you for your 5-star service." Then under the rating it showed 4 stars and a kiss emoji. I looked in the back seat and there was no one there. The car does have a partition, so I cannot see the passenger unless they are in the front seat. Always check because safety is a concern. Confused, she checked the back seat and found no one there. She had clearly seen the driver drop her off and lock the car. He never paid the fare. Instead, he blew her a kiss. Let's start the video from the beginning. The woman goes, "I just want to preface this by saying that I have done Uber and Lyft for years. I also have a dash cam installed and facing forward. About an hour later, I received a call from the detective assigned to the case. I decided to make a social media post, and I uploaded a clip of the dash cam footage. I started scrolling through the comments, and most people were making jokes about it and finding it funny. A few days after all of this, I still couldn't stop thinking about what happened. But then I started receiving anonymous text messages from different numbers. I wanted to help because I felt like the police were not taking it seriously. I was furious and devastated. I could not believe that the police were ignoring such a serious issue. I decided to confront him on social media. I wrote a long post explaining everything that had happened, and I tagged him in it. After I posted it, I waited patiently for his response. I decided to go to the police station and talk to the detective again. I decided to take matters into my own hands and find out what happened to him. I decided to confront him on social media. I wrote a long post explaining everything that had happened, and I tagged him in it. After I posted it, I waited patiently for his response. I decided to go to the police station and talk to the detective again. She continues, so I decided to take matters into my own hands and find out what happened to him. I decided to confront him on social media. I wrote a long post explaining everything that had happened, and I tagged him in it. After I posted it, I waited patiently for his response. It's hard to believe that someone could be so disrespectful and inappropriate. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel.